Well, in winter, I do all my cooking on the wood stove, on the regular heating stove. I got one of these, they're called boxwood stoves, pretty good sized. They got a good flat surface on top with a couple of stove lids, And in winter, that thing is really going. I like if I can get a little dull red glow out of there is great for heating, but very poor for cooking. It's just too hot. You burn things right away. You put a pan right on there. So I always use these, and I happen to think of it. I was using 3 of them this morning. They're a spacer that goes between the stove and the pan. Now, this is not a new thing. Like, this is an old Wagner one. 1903, 1908. Something like that. But this one is designed, it goes that surface down, and then the pan sits on this. That keeps it just elevated enough so it isn't in direct contact with the stove. Keeps things from burning. Same, this is another old one. This is different in that it's got it's a lot thicker, and it's got kind of veins that keep it up. I actually like to use this one. It's meant to use this way, but I like to use this one this way for making toast. It works very well. They're just extremely handy. If you don't use them, it's very difficult to cook if you've got any amount of heat at all going. So, like I say, these are both old. In fact, I've got 2 of these old Wagner ones. This is one I bought a year or 2 ago, and it was more out of curiosity than anything. This is actually a large one, made to go in the bottom of a Dutch oven, which if you're going to use for an oven, you have to have this. It's got the little spacers that keep it off the bottom, so when you put your pan in there for baking, it isn't right in direct contact with the bottom of the stove. These are still available. These old ones are getting harder to find, particularly some of them that are kind of decorative. People tend to want to hang them on a wall. But these you can still get, and they're like 10 bucks. Or they should be 10 bucks. A lot of times things get overpriced. So if you know what you're doing, you can easily find it for $10 or under 10. But it works pretty good. They're out of cast iron, just like these old ones are. They're almost indispensable if you use it. Like, say, if you're going to try to simmer soup or something. I use them, like I say, on the wood stove, on the heating stove. On a cook stove, you've got more room where you could slide things off. Get them way over by the water reservoir. The heat isn't as even as it is on a heating stove. A heating stove, she's right there. Everything is just really hot. But even on the cook stove, I tend to like to have one of these on hand. Just if there's something that you're just going to keep warm, you can either put it over the hot water reservoir or slide one of these underneath it. They work very well. Now, like I say, they're getting harder to find these. The large one is still available. But you can make do with things. I've done it before. Like, say, a horseshoe, particularly the horseshoes, the old ones that they used to draft horses on ice, have got spikes on the bottom. Be like 4 cleats that go into the ice. They work very well because they get it up quite a ways. There's other things you can do to get your pan up off the stove, but you really need to. But most of the stuff, like I've had some that were made out of like a honeycombed tin. Well, they don't last very long. They're like a stovepipe material, and they just don't last very long. The heat and cooling and stuff. Really, cast iron is the way to go. If you run across them, if you're in a situation where you're cooking on a stove like that, you certainly want one. Like I say, this morning I was using 3 of them cooking breakfast. But they're very handy. like I say, you run across, they're called a trivet, but a lot of them now are really more ornamental than anything, and a lot of them will come with, they'll be shaped like a fish or a turtle or something, and then they'll have rubber feet on the bottom. Well, that's fine if you're using them to put a hot plate on a table, like a kettle of soup or something. But for cooking, you can't have that rubber feet on there. But they can be modified, by taking them rubber feet off to make them work. But it should be cast iron, and it should, like these, that isn't, I actually would be happier if it was a little higher even. That's pretty close. But as long as the air can dissipate underneath, it works. Like this one isn't that thick either, but it works very well. Really, they're very handy things to have. I find myself using them all the time.